Greetings everyone! Welcome to the art challenge that I am finally doing, which is Inktober in this year 2024. It is a challenge consisting of using ink as a medium to draw prompts from October 1 until 31. I did participate somewhere in the late 2010s, but I lost motivation. So why not decide to do redemption in this year with a little twist? I created my own prompt list by asking my circles in real life, friends, family, you get the idea. I post this list on my Twitter and feel free to utilize it and join if you can. Let us get into materials. For the paper, I got the Fabriano mixed media with a 9x12 sizing. I got 2 pens for inking. The first is the Sakura Pigma Micron. You know, it is an artist staple. And the second is the 𝕊𝕠𝕗𝕠 brush pen, which I tested on a sketchbook but not on this paper for the challenge yet. Those are my tools, and without further dilly-dallying, let us start. The prompt is overcharged, full of energy onto its limit. I wanted something masculine for this one, and as an additional of this being the season of the witch, I decided to focus on building the prompts of spooky or natural figures to match the invisible countdown to Halloween. Sketched an automaton character essentially doing the power-up pose, and a burst of energy pops out of his body. I went with a concept without showing his full face, instead his strong expression. He's also a gladiator at that. I was struggling with setting up the camera, but we will essentially work with what we have to adapt to the measures. I enjoyed inking on the paper rather than the sketchbook because it flows thoroughly, the ink that is. At first, I was not confident, but it gradually YOLOs to suit my traditional art style. Who even says YOLO anymore? Anyways, the brush pen works wonders, and I seek out on how to ink metal. The character consists of metal parts. It was average for the way it turned out. I will let this one slide on how messy it looks, considering it is the first day, but overall a starter to say the least. I named him Keychain Manifold, the gladiator automaton. The prompt is radical. It means something awesome, unconventional, or extreme. What better way to portray it than skateboards? And what looks like skateboards? Sarcophaguses. And what's inside the sarcophagus? Mummies. One of the jarring stream of consciousness fallen down in the river of my mind. We have a skater mummy doing some sick tricks. I do not know skateboards, so I do not know what this flip is. I wanted the character to be emphasized on a dynamic pose, to which I found satisfactory references. Splash of practicality and modern edge to fit the contemporary idea. I decided to try a new technique. It is that you can dilute ink with water to make grayish mid-tone colors. So I sketched and I also inked it first with the micron. And we get to the part of trying this technique, and it definitely unlocked many doors for manifesting each of the prompts in the future. For the scene, I wanted to incorporate some form of border snapshot onto parallel corners. The result is that it turned out greater than the first prompt, and I wanted to challenge to also ink upside down and really get the dynamic pose experience. Their name is 𝕬𝕬𝕤𝕚, an excellent mummy skater. The prompt is ethereal. I resonate with the prompt very much, and there are many concepts to produce an otherworldly character with. In my mind are angels, and the biblically accurate with the eyes and the monstrous qualities. Despite their chaotic appearance, they seem aesthetic. The character is a blend of a typical angel and the latter monstrosity, a floating mask with a hair of heavenly light and wings with eyes, a figure of both motherly guidance with a touch of statuesque and celestial grandeur. In short, I love the prompt, and the look of angels are mesmerizing enough in aesthetic delight. Okay, so I was out of ink, so I squeezed the brush pen, and my goodness, you can see the smooth ink flow. I love how I get the hang of using the water brush to dilute the ink, and the character has many of those creasing fabrics and spaces. I filled a black square behind to emphasize the otherwise pale character so far. I added shadows to mostly underside with the roses and wings to create the certain depth. Left the hair to minimal value since the hairstyle is made out of celestial glow. One thing I got messed up eventually was her face, but I believe it was a happy accident of itself to add more dramatic lighting. The end is figuratively fine and I love the design for the character as well. Her name is Celine and she is the all-seeing angel. The prompt is toes. Now this is a 180 to all of the flowery words we have so far, essentially a literal part of the body. I wanted to showcase toes to the illustration obviously. My first thought is just making a giant feet with a small person sitting on top of it, on top of the toes. Moreover, the Jack and the Beanstalk tail as reference, but it is a weird visual. So I searched Pinterest and what do you know, we have martial arts. I was trying to think of what creature to put into Street Fighter cosplay, and I had a thought of an Oni, a demon in Japanese mythology, breaking out of the prison, or maybe a main character in his own story. Definitely love the pose and embodying dynamic movements of the illustration. Do have some struggles in blending of values in this particular, but overall a key experience to learn. I added some shackles, signs of him breaking free from some form of cage and in a fighting stance. Others include giving movement lines on the last part of the whole illustration to give the sense of motion of the character leaping mid-air, preparing to charge. Essentially, those are my thoughts on this character, and maybe he has a quest to fulfill and show off his martial arts. His name is Akihito Hayashi. The prompt is bamboozled, meaning betrayed, tricked, or shocked by something or someone. The entity is kind of something, and we are finally busting out the creepy zone on the 5th day. I am pertaining to a jack-in-the-box entity, and the surprise part is you expect something silly to be startled with, but instead you get a shaco box, which is a terror of itself when you play League. I mentioned it in particular as reference for the character. The creepy parts is the surrounding toys, looking at the viewer of the illustration, and the whole perspective of the scene is to emanate the surprise of a jump scare. I have a brilliant idea on what to work with on this, combining both of my traditional art and journaling skills to make a world collide skill combination. What I did is the inking first on the figure, which is a smooth process. Then I used some scraps of drawing paper, glued it onto the page to make a dimensional effect and a feeling. I also added some ink on those teared parts and it granted the creepy factor onto favor. I was proud of this one honestly and gave some sort of story on the character. Perhaps it pushed me to combine some hobby skills on the craft together and made a mini project out of it. Their name is Razzle Dazzle and it is a trickster box and a primary source of nightmares. The prompt is Knight, basically a guardian in shining armor and wields a weapon. Noticing there is only one female character so far, and it will be interesting to make a dame or a female knight. Actually had a conversation with a friend and we created a little plot line for the character. She was once a top knight of the chivalry and how she died was through betrayal of a jealous companion of hers. Her spirit lingers on her body armor, cleaned after her death, and possessed it as if she was never departed. I love when I incorporate some lore to the characters. It makes them feel special and have some depth. For the figure, you can see the armor, yet you can only see shadows inside. To put it clearly, a haunted battle gear. Unfortunately, the footage of this day has been cut off in parts. I do not know why, but my phone was okay on the previous ones. It was a weird technical issue, so maybe I will serve some explanation on the missing parts. I tried different pens and styling of this one. Since she wears armor, I brushed mostly midtones and grayish colors to suit the mood. I made sure to emphasize mostly the background of the illustration, and there are some extra details to impart too. I added some of my gray mild liner to the mix as well. Overall, the concept was good, but I do not think it has some pizzazz in it than the other compositions. Her name is Aurora on her heart, and she has significant lore. The prompt is beans. These are legumes, beans. For the prompt, thinking about making a creature character a gender-neutral humanoid thing. There is a pose to which accommodates the beanish form, which is the fetal position. Another passage of thought is why not make the creature rest or born inside the large sack, shaped like a bean. Going through that alien vibes and making a supernatural character, the main focus is to draw a lot of beans and also tie it into a character who is one of them, one with the beans. As peculiar as it sounds, the footage is cut off. Once again, only on the latter half, so this one is okay. For the shading, it is still prevalent like the previous parts. I mostly did the blocking and adding more values to the various shapes and filling some enclosed large areas, especially the large bean that the creature is resting to, making it darker but still has that interesting texture, so it was formed via the water brush. It turned out pretty good, and I do love abstract poses and concepts in a way. Showcasing the creature will be born and has a mysterious aura to them. It is a newborn child, but in an unconventional form and species, to be honest. Their name is 𝕬𝕬𝕤, and they are the keeper of the beans. The prompt is 𝕬𝕬𝕤. To put it into simpler terms, is the headless horseman, a fallen soldier whose head was severed in battle, and the ghost hunts relentlessly to wandering travelers ready for their untimely demise. With his metal whip with spikes, floating head, and a black steed, he will stalk the danger of the night. For this prompt, I will simply make a fan art of the legend and creatively put some details into the mix. The central turning point to where I have to make changes in the recording process because I cannot take it any longer. Both my storage and the outcome of this video is on the rocks, so I have to compromise to just video the second half of each prompts. After I erased pencil sketches and start inking with a brush pen, it would be easier for me or less in the storage. The inking process of this current illustration, I wish it was recorded fully, but we only have a few moments on this prompt, and it turned out exactly what I pictured the Headless Horseman would be in my book. The prompt is lipstick, a makeup product applied on lips. Definitely I wanted a sultry character to embody such item. I went with a demoness or a succubus applying lipstick to herself. She has an aura of a starlet or a drama queen type of occupation. A complete amalgamation of different references such as Raven from Teen Titans, Evelyn from League of Legends, and Betty Boop in a charming darling. The time period I was fondly based on designing this character is on the 1920s, on that flapper look, striking a pose and looking the part with fierceness and ready to attract potential lovers with a glance of glamour. So old Hollywood. The inking process on this one was a journey, plus a clean one. I find myself seeing a different texture with the water brush touching on the paper. It feels organic. It surprisingly fits to the aesthetic of the illustration and the character. So far, one of my least detailed presentations, but there's beauty of the simplicity. I inked mostly the clothing parts of the character solid blacks to fill it in. It turned out pretty, and I love that there is not much clutter going on. It is straight to the point of a demoness applying makeup to herself. Her name is Rowena Hellfury, and she is a darling, isn't she? The prompt is city. My current focus is to display the environment, but also make the character pop out and to be one with it, as in they correlate with each other. Immediately, my mind goes to Trevor Henderson, a horror artist who popularized fictional cryptids such as Cartoon Cat and Siren Head, and they are found in somewhat urban areas. In another light perspective is what I lack so far in these illustrations, and I wanted to incorporate the aspect. A process turned into a giant figure of shadow and a wide grin as its obvious frightening demeanor. It has a halo on top to signify its unearthly appearance lurking in the urban air. Okay, I love this concept of a character and made sure to give justice in the inking process. The goal is to give dimension to the buildings and make a spooky atmosphere for majority of the space. The creature itself is enveloped in black, leaving a smidge of highlight to give depth. The space around it is linked to give the atmosphere illusion of shadow emitting from behind the infrastructure. I liked how the pieces all come together and gained interaction. The point of view looking upward to see a massive Cheshire cat smile in the dim of night is terrifying. The name of the entity is Ed in the Dark. That is all for part 1. Stay tuned for the next part coming soon. Feel free to comment your thoughts and make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching and have a pleasant day.